The mysterious Coral Castle, America's Stonehenge. Nestled away in the sunny southern tip of Florida, about 30 minutes south of Miami, lies one of the most perplexing and fascinating structures in America, the Coral Castle. Built entirely by a single man working alone over the course of 20 years, this impressive structure has baffled scientists and visitors for decades. How was one man able to quarry, carve, transport, and erect enormous blocks of coral weighing up to 30 tons each, all by himself and using only simple tools? The mysteries and potential solutions surrounding the Coral Castle continue to intrigue and amaze to this day. The builder Edward Leedskalnin. The creator of the Coral Castle was Edward Leedskalnin, a 5-foot-tall, 100-pound Latvian immigrant. Leedskalnin was born in 1887 and moved to the United States in 1912 at the age of 26. Hoping the warmer climate would help alleviate his tuberculosis symptoms. After initially living in Canada and California, he settled in Florida City, just south of Miami, around 1918. Leedskalnin was engaged to marry a girl named Agnes Scuffs in Latvia. However, the day before their wedding in 1912, Agnes called off the engagement, leaving Leedskalnin heartbroken. He immigrated to North America shortly after. It seems constructing the Coral Castle was his way of showing Agnes and the world just what he was capable of. Leedskalnin was incredibly secretive about how he constructed the castle, working only at night by lantern light to avoid onlookers. Only a few grainy photographs exist documenting his construction methods. Leedskalnin gave various theories about how he built the castle and moved the massive blocks on his own. He claimed he knew the secrets of the ancient builders who created the Egyptian pyramids and other megalithic monuments, implying he used magnetic or astrological forces to move the stones. Engineers and scientists have scoffed at these mystical explanations, instead trying to determine what combination of mechanical advantage, ingenuity, and determination allowed Leedskalnin's feats. Leedskalnin originally named his project Rock Gate Park, but later changed it to Coral Castle to reflect the castle-like walls and towers he constructed from massive blocks of local coral limestone. He chose the location in Florida City for its mild climate and abundance of raw building materials. Leedskalnin purchased the land where he would build his mysterious masterpiece in Florida City in 1918, building the castle ruins and walls. Leedskalnin began quarrying and shaping coral in the 1920s in a makeshift open-air workshop beside the construction site. Neighbors reported hearing his hammering and stone chiseling at all hours of the night. Leedskalnin would manually quarry limestone blocks from the bedrock using basic tools like a pickaxe, sledgehammer, hand winch, and pulleys. He carved and shaped each block himself to create smooth faces and straight edges before hauling them to the construction site. He carefully selected blocks that were naturally water-worn into odd shapes, enhancing their aesthetic charm. Leedskalnin chose blocks of differing sizes up to 30 tons, maximizing the structural stability of his amateur architecture. The first structures Leedskalnin erected were a 22-foot-tall obelisk and a 26-inch-thick 8-foot wall. Both of these original structures still stand exactly as Leedskalnin built them. Next, he built the towering 2-story castle tower from white coral blocks, incorporating oddly shaped stones like the heart-shaped formation. Wooden shims were used to level the rough blocks, correcting small imperfections in shaping. Rings and pilasters were carved around structural holes. Everything was held together by the sheer weight and fit of the precisely cut blocks. No mortar was used. The average wall thickness is 8 feet. The tallest tower reaches 28 feet. Impressive corbelled archways were built to hold up stairways and provide aesthetically pleasing passages. The walls surrounding the castle exhibit Leedskalnin's incredible masonry skills. They curve gently and change height, with hand-sculpted round pillars spaced artistically along the perimeter. Leedskalnin incorporated natural found objects like seashells and coral fossils into the walls. Crosses, stars, crescents, and discs were carved into the face of some blocks in an architectural style similar to ancient monoliths around the world. After erecting the castle itself, Leedskalnin built a 20-foot-tall crescent moon-shaped wall. In the 1940s, he replaced his temporary wooden gate with the enormous 8-foot-tall coral monolith now known as the Moon Gate. Weighing 9 tons, legend says Leedskalnin built this gate as a tribute to Agnes after he learned of her death in 1951. Leedskalnin carved the star and crescent moon shapes into this iconic coral monolith. Furnishings and interior details. Inside the coral walls, Leedskalnin created an open courtyard surrounded by small rooms. These rooms were originally furnished with objects all made from coral stone: thrones, tables, benches, beds. He used no mortar, instead joining the pieces with dowels and pins carved from the same material. Most of the original furniture has unfortunately been stolen or vandalized over the decades, but a few water-worn basins and coral chairs remain. Leedskalnin also built an obelisk-shaped sundial and barbecue. The interior was decorated with hand-sculpted ornamentation like stars, planets, flowers, birds, turtles, and geometric shapes artistically incorporated into structural elements. Leedskalnin would collect discarded glass bottles and ash from his nightly cooking fires to use as mortar, filling in small gaps only where absolutely necessary for structural integrity. The living quarters on the second floor were accessible only by a ladder in the corner of the courtyard. This allowed Leedskalnin to maintain his valued privacy. The Spartan bedroom contained only a small bed, chair, photography equipment, and a few personal items. Leedskalnin lived in this little castle, quarrying, carving, and building until his death in 1951 at 64 years old. The Polaris telescope. One of the most impressive feats at Coral Castle is the nearly 30-ton Polaris telescope, built from 343 blocks of coral. It includes wall slabs weighing 9 tons, 6 tons, and 18 tons, plus a massive 24-foot-tall concrete pier. The telescope was fully functional and aligned precisely with the North Star Polaris, which never changes position in the sky. Leedskalnin used no written plans or measurements. He knew how to position each block using the positions of celestial bodies, as ancient architects did. This enormous homemade telescope allowed Leedskalnin to indulge his love of astronomy and admiration for the night sky. The structure was originally located a few yards south of the castle tower. In 1986, it was disassembled and put into storage during a land ownership dispute. In the 1990s, the telescope was restored and moved to its current location in the northeast corner of the property. Visitors can look through it to view the red neon sign of the Coral Castle restaurant down south on Old Dixie Highway. How did he move the stones? The enduring mystery surrounding Coral Castle is how Leedskalnin, working alone, was able to move the massive blocks with no modern machinery. The largest stones are estimated to weigh nearly 30 tons. Due to Leedskalnin's extreme secrecy while building the castle in the 1920s and 32nd, there are unfortunately no definitive answers. Many imaginative theories have arisen, but engineers remain perplexed. Leedskalnin claimed to know the secrets of the ancient stonemasons and suggested he used magnetic forces, astronomy, calculations, or supernatural means to levitate and move the blocks. But contemporary scientists universally reject these mystical explanations. Leedskalnin did apply for a patent in 1939 for a perpetual motion holder. But this referred to his shop lathe powered by magnets, not his stone-moving methods. Without mechanical assistance, moving heavy objects requires ingenuity in minimizing friction and taking advantage of potential energy, leverage, and momentum. Looking at the remnants of Leedskalnin's tools and workshop provides some clues about his methods. He used an open hand-cranked winch and tripod to lift and lower the blocks a few inches. Controlled incremental movements allowed precision placement while positioning stones. Timber and metal sleds, rollers, and rails were employed to slowly inch stones into place without dragging and scuffing. Leedskalnin learned how to carefully rock weights to gain momentum, tipping stones onto timbers so they would slowly pivot or flip. For tall vertical moves, temporary earth ramps were built, then dug away after use. Counterweights, pulleys, chains, and bracing poles provided lifting assistance and stability when positioning blocks. Leedskalnin understood center of gravity and leverage principles, expertly placing shims and levers to nudge massive rocks inch by inch exactly where he wanted them. Whatever the methods, they clearly required ingenuity, determination, strength, and precision. Leedskalnin's techniques evolved over his 20-plus years constructing the Coral Castle as he solved problems moving increasingly larger blocks. No one method accounts for moving all the stones. He employed a toolkit of techniques, adapted as needed for each unique block. The human capacity for problem solving. While we may never fully recreate Leedskalnin's methods, the greater lessons of the Coral Castle lie in appreciating the human capacity for solving problems with creativity and perseverance. Leedskalnin exemplified the incredible tenacity of which humans are capable, especially when motivated by a broken heart or desire to prove the world wrong. By dedicating decades of obsessive focus to his castle project, Leedskalnin left a legacy demonstrating that even a small, weak man can accomplish seemingly superhuman feats with enough motivation and persistence. We all have hidden reserves of problem-solving ability that can accomplish the seemingly impossible when necessity demands it. The Coral Castle stands as a monument to human ingenuity, focus, and our unlimited potential. The move to Homestead. In 1936, the land in Florida City where Leedskalnin had built his castle was bought by a consortium of investors planning to build a housing subdivision. He was given 3 years to vacate the property. Leedskalnin decided to move his entire Coral Castle 10 miles north to Homestead, Florida. Transporting the coral blocks was an impressive feat in itself, requiring big trucks and teams of mules. Leedskalnin refused any direct help, but did hire trucking companies to haul loaded trailers and assist with positioning. He would personally load the blocks himself using his ingenious lifting tools and rigging techniques. Leedskalnin labored for 3 years disassembling, transporting, and reassembling the entire castle. Neighbors in Homestead were amazed as Leedskalnin slowly recreated his castle, quarried fresh blocks, and resumed carving, building, and erecting walls and towers. He made repairs and improvements while moving the structures, like replacing wooden stabilizers with permanent pillars quarried on site. At the new location, Leedskalnin had much more privacy to work undisturbed compared to Florida City. The impressive feat of moving demonstrated Leedskalnin's perseverance along with his expert engineering skills. His successful relocation only adds to the Coral Castle's mystique and charm. Visitors today are lucky he undertook this arduous process, so future generations could enjoy his creation. The mysterious man dies. Leedskalnin continued improving and expanding the Coral Castle until his sudden death in 1951 at age 64. He had kept his illness a secret, suddenly taking ill and checking himself into a Miami hospital. He died a few days later of malnutrition due to terminal stomach cancer that had spread to his esophagus. True to his private nature, Leedskalnin had made no will or plans for his property. He had no close relatives. This left the fate of his Coral Castle in limbo. The story spread across the nation of the quirky recluse who spent 20 years building a majestic castle from huge coral blocks as a tribute to his lost love. A few kids vandalized the property after his death, but local citizens banded together to protect the castle ruins. They knew what a national treasure it was. The property sat abandoned for several years while inheritance was settled through the courts. In 1953, a retired bus driver named Julius Levin from Michigan bought the Coral Castle for $3,500. In January 1981, the Coral Castle was placed on the National Register of Historic Places. In 1984, the state of Florida purchased the land from the Levin family to ensure its preservation and accessibility. The Coral Castle today. Today, the Coral Castle remains a delightful roadside attraction in Homestead, open to visitors year-round. The grounds have been preserved to look much as they did when Leedskalnin was alive. His simple living quarters built into the castle walls can be seen by a guided tour. The coral block furniture he carved has unfortunately been damaged by vandals, though a few pieces remain. The Coral Castle Museum contains historic photographs, models, and tools used in constructing the castle. There are exhibits explaining some theories of how Leedskalnin moved and lifted the massive blocks on his own. Visitors can see the remnants of his workshop and some of the salvaged tools he employed like winches, tripods, and chains. Young children seem especially delighted exploring this whimsical castle with its twisting labyrinth walls, peekaboo holes, and rough limestone construction looking like it was built by a giant. The Coral Castle remains intriguing and inspiring for adults as well. Engineers are still trying to decipher the methods Leedskalnin used to construct his American Stonehenge. The heart of the property is Leedskalnin's shrine to his lost love, Agnes Scuffs. This includes the iconic 9-ton moon gate with its huge coral monolith carved into a crescent. Leedskalnin reportedly named this the Gate of Love and erected it after he learned of Agnes's death in 1951. This massive coral entrance stone leads visitors into the central court, containing 2 heart-shaped tables, chairs, a sundial, and barbecue, all hand-carved from single coral stones by Leedskalnin alone. Pop culture references the unusual nature, mysterious construction, and romantic backstory of the coral castle have inspired many pop culture references across mediums. Several songs have been written about Leedskalnin's lost love and construction of the castle-like Coral Castle by 50 Year Storm and Leedskalnin's Lament by Mark Cook. Billy Idol filmed a music video on site at the Coral Castle for his popular song Sweet 16. The Barefoot Mailman, a novel by Theodore Pratt who personally knew Leedskalnin, was a fictionalized account naming the main character Ed Leed. Books like The Mystery of the Coral Castle in Florida, Coral Castle Construction, Myths, Legends, and in Folktales, and The Coral Castle, The Mystery of Ed Leedskalnin and How He Moved 1,100 Tons of Coral Rock by Hand, attempt to explain how Leedskalnin accomplished his amazing building feats. Several documentaries have examined the mysteries of the Coral Castle, like What's This Coral Castle All About? And In Search of Coral Castle. Both DC and Marvel comic books have included storylines referring to the Coral Castle, coral crystal technologies, or characters based on Leedskalnin like Geoforce. While we may never solve the mysteries of how one heartbroken man built his dazzling coral castle, the secrets locked away inside these rough limestone walls continue to spark human imagination and ingenuity. Leedskalnin would probably be tickled to know how many musicians he has inspired and books he has launched, just because no one can quite figure out how he did it. Sometimes the most intriguing mysteries are the ones left unsolved.